Copy. Hold fire.
Sorry, Commander. They were a lost cause.
So, Batwoman. Let's talk about it. But first, an introduction. Hey, I'm Sunnyside Up. I'm new to YouTube. I'm a high school student and a writer, currently employed by my mind to do whatever it wants on a whim. I love superhero shows and documentaries. I did competitive debate, as you can probably see from my profile picture, but I don't really love it, as you can also probably see from my profile picture. I much more prefer having conversations like these. Just as an aside, I fully intended to put out a video before this one as the first video on my channel, but seeing as that video is going to take forever to edit, I wanted to put this video out when the newest episode was still fresh on everyone's mind. So stay tuned for that one, I guess. So, there's been some controversy around the episode Justice for All, Season 2, Episode 14. Much of it is centered around whether the writers should have been more careful with the Black Lives Matter storyline, especially the ending, and mostly I agree with it. I wish they had issued some type of trigger and content warning for this episode. Maybe I missed it, but still. I don't think we've seen more gun violence in this episode than any other episode in the CW Arrowverse shows, period. On the other hand, I also understand wanting to keep the element of surprise, but you are showing direct gun violence on screen, so it's iffy. I mean, like, we all walked into this episode tense anyway from all the promos, so content warning should be there. But that said, the other part of the criticism I've seen on Reddit for now mostly is how people don't think TV shows should chase every socially relevant storyline. Some people are saying, well, I don't want a Black Lives Matter storyline. I came here to watch Batwoman, not my favorite characters get shot. And be in mind that one of the Redditors who was commenting was a Black woman themselves. And these are all valid criticisms. I completely understand where they're coming from, and to some extent, I even agree. But I also want to address this issue, because I myself am a writer, and I think it has less to do with pushing, what have you, diversity agendas or woke agendas, and more with simply creative decisions. Okay, so first of all, there is not a single piece of literature that is themeless. It just doesn't happen. Even children's books. Even those one-word stories. And even if you write something without a theme in mind, it's either going to develop as you write it, or some lunatic out there, me, is going to find one that was probably lurking in the bushes anyway. But despite that, a theme is just a good thing to have. It allows for callbacks and character development, and those memorable quotes that those websites always collect. But most of all, stories have meanings and purpose. The earliest people told stories to warn kids not to go out alone or take candies from strangers. Hold on, I'm gonna... Today, we tell stories to fall in love with the ideal match, to daydream, and most of all, to criticize or mock society.
Power to the people!
Oh my God.
We tell stories so we can inflict change in people's behaviors. It's not that different from when we used to tell kids not to go into the dark forest. Only today, we're trying to tell people, stop being such an asshole.
Stop it. Get some help.
And one of the best vehicles for showing themes are characters. I've seen or heard of two camps regarding how we as writers should portray characters in the media. One camp says, characters aren't entitled to any storylines. Just write a character as a human being and you're fine. Let the theme come to them. You know, just because you write an Asian character doesn't mean that they must have strict parents or COVID storyline. And the same logic goes that even if you write a gay character, you're not required to have a coming out storyline, or an internalized homophobia storyline, or a trans character for which you're not required to show their transition or address the way society treats trans people. If you write a character of African descent, no one says you must show racism and police brutality. If you write a female character, no need to show gender discrimination in the workplace or sexual assault. Again, this is what some people think, not necessarily my views. That is one camp in the woods. The other camp is, you should try to at least address some of these things, or else it's romanticization. And I don't mean romancing Byronic characters, although that is part of it. So romanticization is really just playing the good things about something up, while mostly ignoring the bad, or playing it down. Or sometimes it's just blatantly ignoring the bad side. So as a writer, you should either address at least one of the difficulties that come with certain attributes of people, or else it's not proper representation. So by this camp's line of thinking, if you write a trans character, you might not address transition or how society treats them, but you should at least address the difficulty around embracing a gender different than one's sex, or some topic other that is relevant. You get what I mean. So, I sleep most of the time in that second camp. That's not to say that I think characters are clearly defined literary devices. That would be bad representation. I'm not going to merely put a disabled character in one frame of my story just to show that, like God hates us and life is horrible, and also check off a diversity checklist. I'm only saying that if you have a disabled character, wouldn't it be sensible to address the differences that everyone has instead of simply ignoring them? In a way, storylines are meant to give characters distinctiveness. No two characters will make the same choices or even emerge from that storyline or character arc the same way. Kate's motorcycle seeks to symbolize her fierceness and her boldness. Compare that to Ryan's beat-down van that seeks to symbolize Ryan's down-to-earth sort of personality and how she fights for the little guy.
Seriously, guys, I am not here to kick your ass booty, but I will if I have to.
And I'm not saying that you can't run certain storylines with certain characters. If you do it well, you can run any storyline by any character, basically. But there are characters that are just better suited for certain storylines.
I'm out.
Yeah, I should call him out anyway.
I mean, I'm leaving the Crows.
Like teen love. Like, obviously you wouldn't put that sort of storyline on like a 50-year-old man, because they're just not the best vehicle for that theme. Moving on, as for the other point of controversy, I agree that escapism is a way to view media. There's nothing wrong with escapism. In fact, people with trauma often have alternate realities in their heads. Like, where do you think I get all my writing ideas? Stop thinking about this world, go live in another. Escapism is a coping mechanism. I'm not trying to take that away from people. But here's the thing. We as audience members, as readers and writers and citizens of a terrifying world, seem drawn to people with similar experiences as ourselves. That's partly why the LGBTQ community is so close-knit, so much so that we'd hug strangers for comfort. It's because the majority of us have been through absolute shit, and when other people understand that and have gone through it themselves, we're more likely to trust those people because we have the hope that in knowing the trials and tribulations we've been through, they will be nicer to us. We tend to trust them more.
Okay. So, Crow's Horror Stories. You want me to go, or do you want to do yours first?
And also, someone's gonna have to hear those morbid jokes, and better someone that laughs along with you than someone who picks up the phone to call 911. Sometimes other trauma havers will also be assholes, but most of the times they're okay. It's why we create support groups for people who have been through shit, often led by people who have also been through shit.
I cannot tell you how comforting it is to be in a room with people who are just as screwed up as I am, So,
where am I going with this? Oh yeah, characters who we identify with, who have gone through what we have often are the characters we hold on to. They are the characters we cherish because maybe in some sense we see ourselves in them.
So what about Maggie? What's she like? I always like her so much. You know, she's smart and she's tough and she's just beautiful.
And that's why representation is so important. To see other people who have been through the same struggles as us succeed, well, some part of their success feels like our success.
Now clench those fists, chin up. And now try and angle that cape so it catches some wind. Good. There she is! There she is!
And the other thing is, we already attribute media with a certain amount of suspension of disbelief. We watch and read about characters that go through things that we can only dream about. Meet fantastic beasts, fight space aliens, drive cars real fast, and, somehow not get arrested. So it gets to a point where we have to ask, how much suspension of disbelief is too much for us to bear? Well, have you ever watched a character have a mental breakdown over something small, and some part of you is like, aw, that's cute?
Max, you use coupons? I had no idea. You're looking at me like I'm on To Catch a Predator. We don't need to use those. I have my tip money right here. What are you talking about? I have coupons. Here, take them. I can't. I don't want to. I've fallen so far, I can't fall any further. Don't make me.
Yeah, me too. And it's not to belittle them. This is not to mock them or to invalidate their feelings. It's just your suspension of disbelief snapping. And in this day and age, the disbelief that writers must suspend is getting heavier. Blatant racism, homophobia, transphobia, the millions of deaths from COVID, and most recently, the bombings in Palestine and Israel. All of it make it hard for writers and audiences alike to pretend that whatever character on screen right now is somehow 100% removed from all the horrible, horrible things that's going on. All of it makes it hard for audiences to take a character seriously. Because let's be honest.
I don't know where this is going. Let's be honest.
Many of you watching probably have been through more crap than them.
Well, there it is.
It can feel like invalidating to people's trauma, because all they show on screen is a watered down version, or at least what many feel is a watered down version, of real life events. And that's why you often have stories like this, where army veterans are dismissive of other people in support groups. It's not malice, at least I hope it's not. It's simply their minds going, you think that's bad? Get a fucking load of this. But that's what happens when you have characters who have gone through the sometimes bare minimum, yet the show dresses it up as if they've gone through hell.
You forget it! I already tried it! It's magnetically sealed! 3PO! Where could he be? Will you shut up and listen to me?
Listen to this. Try releasing a teen movie like To All the Boys I've Loved Before during the Cold War, during the Red Scare and the constant threat of nuclear war. It's just, it's so pure and detached. You just can't. We can't invest in the character's success because the conditions of that success is so superficial, to say the least. So that's what I think about characters and storylines. But here's the thing. This episode is so much more than what we've been talking about. Justice for All seems to be where all the storylines of the season converge to create a central theme. A central theme that incorporates Black Lives Matter, but is ultimately bigger than Black Lives Matter. Namely... See, there were two more camps, this time in regards to how society often views troubled people. First, as conversations in society open up to trauma, racism, sexism, mental illness, disability, LGBTQ+, etc., people have begun to assume and speak over actual traumatized people. They assume that they know what people with trauma should do just because they've read like one post on Instagram. They assume they know what it's like, and therefore they assume they know best. That's why so many times you have cis, white, straight, abled people on Twitter speaking over actual minority voices. And the intentions are not necessarily harmful, but it is a different form of ignorance, and it's just as bad. Pain will make you stronger. Okay, great, but what am I supposed to be strong for? Are you insinuating that society will be horrible to me? Are you insinuating that when I go out, society will bite me twice as hard as you have? And then, in which case, shouldn't your focus be on improving society instead of trying to change my behavior in response to a horrible society? There's something very toxic in nature about it, because it assumes that there's a point to suffering. I'll tell you right now, there's no point.
They say bad things happen for a reason, but no wild words gonna stop the bleeding.
I don't need you to tell me what doesn't kill me makes me stronger. I don't really care, because in the end, what didn't kill me tried to kill me. And for the second camp, well...
Sorry, Commander. They were a lost cause.
The first camp may seem much better compared to this, and it is. But it's also where the romanticization comes in. Because it assumes that pain makes people stronger, when really it's just made them build up thick walls and not trust anyone. And for the people which pain did not make strong, they're weak. So, let's go back to Batwoman. What does any of this that I've said connect to anything in the show? Well, first, Batwoman does address some very true-to-life issues, particularly in Season 2 more than Season 1. And the first thing that comes to mind is snakebite.
What is this, the Smurf edition? It's supposed to be red and yellow. Cook's made a couple modifications.
And I know that some people struggling with addiction will probably look at the storyline and say, "Aw, cute." And yeah, I can't deny that. But at least the writers don't romanticize it. The way that the show frames snakebite users is about the same way real-life society views people with trauma. Snakebite users are, in society's eyes, the weak ones. They didn't become warriors. If they were stronger, they wouldn't need drugs, right? Jacob Kane even went from a strong one to a weak one this season. But if we're being honest, nobody is truly a strong one. All the main characters are either numbing themselves with work, using, searching for revenge, or simply using other coping mechanisms. Justice for All is what I consider a textbook case on how to comment on society subtly, but perhaps unintentionally. Again, it was branded as a Black Lives Matter episode, but it actually looks at a bigger picture. So let's look at it. In Justice for All, there are 3 plots. First, a zombie plot. Without Angelique or Ocean, Falseface cooks up a weird batch of snakebite that turns people into zombies. Essentially.
Snakebite accesses the brain's memory storage in the hippocampus. I think this new recipe makes people crave memories, but thanks to some major synaptic misfirings, someone else's memories.
And that's why they're eating brains.
Yeah, okay, so basically. The second is a Black Lives Matter plot. Ryan, Luke, and Sophie are all thrown in jail for being black, essentially. And some more, if you know what I mean. There's also an Alice and Kate plot. Basically, Kate's alive, but doesn't remember Alice or literally anybody else.
Kate. Who?
It's kind of hard to explain. Alright, I'm about to analyze the creative decisions in this episode, so keep in mind death of the author. What do you associate zombies with? Headless, brainless creatures that just walk around doing mostly nothing, right? I mean, yeah, they eat brains and shit, but like, that thing is sort of, okay. So the point is, they're a shell of what they used to be as a person, right? They move around, but their mind is empty. They've got nowhere to go, nothing to do as part of a higher purpose. They think short term. Oh look, there's a human. Brains. So now, let's look at, Richard?
My name's Richard Monahan.
So, Richard is a snakebite user. We know that snakebite helps people relive past regrets and corrects them. Richard uses snakebite because his wife was killed in a car crash before
we even got a chance to know each other.
Remember when Mary says that the new snakebite makes addicts hungry for memories? Well, Richard is technically hungry for memories. He's hungry for the idyllic life that he should be living.
I didn't really care. Just wanted to get my fix. I just wanted to see her. My wife?
So, okay, let's see. Short-term goals. Check. No higher purpose. Check. Mind, empty except for short-term goal. Sure, check. This is flimsy, I know. However, the show also makes it very clear that Richard is different from all the zombies we see in this episode.
I'm sorry. I don't know what's happening to me. Just run.
What?
Go, run, go, get out of here.
Why?
It looked off, I don't know. I didn't really care. Just wanted to get my fix. I just wanted to see her.
Richard knows it's not healthy. He knows that the current coping mechanisms he uses is not healthy. And that's why he doesn't bite this lady's face off, or these guys. But like, this guy, it's kind of justified. Kind of. Point is, Richard knows he's not strong. He recognizes it. He is slightly aggressive toward people trying to help him, for reasons way too heavy to get into now. But if you've ever had issues, you'll probably know what I mean. However, you can clearly see that he's not mindless. Richard doesn't hurt Mary or Jacob or anyone in that clinic, or anyone outside. Richard is obviously still human, despite having a cannibalistic episode.
Got any food? I'm so hungry. Hey.
So much so that two cops try to help him, despite those freaky eyes. This episode seems to be a metaphor for possibly ODing.
How'd you know about this place? She helped my friend from the gym with heroin OD.
In the event where Richard almost loses himself, he suddenly realized how unhealthy his coping mechanisms are. And the show doesn't wag its fingers at him, doesn't say, oh, you're bad and evil because you use drugs. No, he's treated like a normal human being. The writers recognize that people going through hard patches may make bad decisions, but that doesn't make them evil at heart. Not you though, Roman. You're evil at heart. You're sick. Compare all that to Tavernoff saying,
Sorry, Commander. They were a lost cause.
Another analogy, perhaps? You know how in the media, sometimes people with trauma are killed off because it was the best thing that could happen? We call it cured through death or something. But these people weren't any more strong or less strong than Richard. They perhaps just fell into a larger rabbit hole. They didn't know that help was available, or if they did, they couldn't afford the steep therapy and rehab fees. And being depressed can often feel hopeless. The only thing that you really think about is, how am I gonna get through today? So I guess you could say many of these guys were zombies even before they took that faithful dose. Was it their fault? No. The fault is on the society that hurt them, that denied them help and kindness when they needed it. So when Tavernoff calls them lost causes and outside our jurisdiction, it's obviously showing that he's a douche, but it's also commenting on how society would rather forget about people that need help rather than getting them help. And this snakebite storyline actually really reminds me of the whole Obsidian Lens storyline on Supergirl. now let's go to the Black Lives Matter storyline. This episode begins with a fundraiser for a community center. Community centers have been proven to have a huge positive effect on homeless youth, like Ryan and Angelique were, more than foster homes. And they are much better at decreasing crime rates than police patrols. There's evidence out there. I'll link some resources in the description. So the fundraiser gets brutally ended by police. If you remember, a couple of episodes earlier, when the community center plot starts, Ryan has to defeat this criminal who tears up the community center during the first opening. And the big bad of that episode is revealed to be the prison CEO who wants to destroy community centers so that more troubled youth, disproportionately black youth, will be sentenced to prison.
For-profit prison CEO Ellis O'Brien allegedly engineered a conspiracy to sabotage community outreach program in a bid to increase incarceration rates among the city's most at-risk.
In this episode, plans for the community center are thwarted again. It's almost as if the police don't want this community center to succeed.
So, if you don't have the proper paperwork, you got two choices. You can shut it down, or you can pay a $2,500 fine and a mark on your liquor license.
I also just want to say, these cops legit treat these zombies better than black people. I'm just saying.
Just want to help you through this.
So on one hand, you got the crows, who call the drug addicts lost causes. And on the other, you have the authorities who also work with prisons to imprison lost causes. Do you see a theme emerging? Because I see a theme emerging. So now let's go to Alice's storyline. Kate's alive. Alice sees it with her own two eyes. In the previous episodes, there's also this hypnotic sequence where Alice and young Kate discuss whether Alice is a lost cause or not. And if we're being honest, much of Season 1 was about this, whether Alice was a lost cause or not. Season 2 kind of flips this on its head. It's now arguing whether Kate is a lost cause. The first part of the season is focused on whether the search for Kate is a lost cause. The latter will probably be about whether rehabilitating Kate is a lost cause. That's not to say that Alice's lost cause storyline isn't still going. She is making strides to prove that she can be a better person. Ocean's also an asshole in this episode. Major asshole. You know what? Maybe that's why over 80% of Uranus is Ocean. And Ocean kind of demonstrates the thinking that the assumption people have. I know what's best for you because, I don't know, I watched Joker. It's gaslighting mostly. I know you don't want to find Kate. I know Kate hates you. You know that too.
Because I don't want you to get Kate back.
I don't expect you to get it.
Oh, I get it. You're jealous because you think if I get Kate back, I won't want you.
I love you.
He sees Kate as a lost cause for Alice. Not with Alice, but he decides it for her. And that's toxic behavior. So, we now have 3 lost cause storylines in this episode alone. Possibly 4. Where do we go from there? I think Justice for All is a meta-commentary about society and how it views traumatized and troubled people. It was branded as purely a Black Lives Matter episode, and I think it sort of missed its mark about that. Because it's not just about Black Lives Matter. Remember Christian Hall, the 19-year-old who was killed by police just this last year? He was having a mental health crisis, and police shot him in the chest for it. And how about Zachary Bearhills? Him too. He had only stopped taking his meds, and police tasered him 16 times for it. And Ricardo Munoz. And Waltz Wallace Jr. Research shows that people with untreated mental illness are 16 times more likely to be shot and killed by police. But what can you do when you can't afford therapy or treatment? What can you do when society actively bets against you, wants you to fail even? This episode is about how police, and by extension society, treats lost causes. I hope I don't come off as saying all lives matter in the way that it's being used to invalidate the Black Lives Matter movement. It's definitely true that society disproportionately deems Black people as lost causes or waste of funding. That's why we have disproportionate levels of police brutality and discriminatory practices in the courtroom. But at the same time, it's part of a bigger issue. You know how foster kids are always portrayed as violent teenagers? How society treats people with mental disorders like bipolar disorder and PTSD like lost causes, like depression is a disease to be caught, and once you go down with it, you can never recover? I only hope to tell you that lives matter, because no one is a lost cause. And if the only way to rehabilitate someone is to kill them, then somebody messed up. This season, if we're being honest, is discussing the issue of who we consider lost causes. Ryan is, in essence, what society would deem a lost cause. She's an ex-con and newly on parole, she's Black, she's an orphan and a foster child, and she's poor. The odds don't get much more stacked than that. But throughout the season, Ryan has demonstrated that she isn't a lost cause. And in this season, Alice is also making strides to demonstrate that she isn't one either. So, in the end, we have to turn our head to the main enemy of this season and ask, is the policing system a lost cause? In Justice for All, Sophie seems to give an answer.
I mean, I'm leaving the Crows.
Yes. Yes, it seems so. Hi, again, thanks for watching this video. I know there will probably be people who disagree with my analysis of this episode, and that's cool. There's no one correct interpretation of a piece of literary work, only the interpretation that the text supports the most. That being said, I really like where this season is going, and if I could just suggest one thing, have the writers here just one thing. Please don't end this season saying that you've solved police brutality or something like that. I think it would really undermine the whole idea that this season has been pushing. And it's that while Kate may have seen the world from a different perspective and that she may have been able to change certain things, Ryan sees it from a whole nother perspective. And I think it would be dumb to say that a single Black woman in a suit would change everything. Because racism and discrimination and greed isn't a single evil. It's a collective evil. And saying that you've also somehow solved that just seems wrong. So please don't do that. Please. Also, Harley Quinn for season 3? So that she and Alice can be buddies? Please? Anyway, you're free to stick around on my channel, but I've literally got no other videos, so I'm not sure what you could do. Whatever. Bye. Thanks for watching.